And the 1991 winner of the Daytona 500 is Ernie Irvan, the Morgan McClure Chevrolet.
He's a great father. He's a great husband.
He does a lot for all of us around here at the farm, and a lot for me in racing. He does what he can for anybody that he's able to. Not a lot of people can go to the racetrack with their dad and say, hey, he knows what's going on, you know?
We say he reinvents the wheel on everything. He'll take every little project or whatever and try to think of a better way to do it. And so he just never slows down.
He's passionate in whatever he does, pretty much gives 110% to anything.
When I think about Ernie Irvan, I think about determination, I think about drive.
He wanted to make his mark, and he was willing to do whatever he needed to do to get himself to the front.
There's Ernie Irvan, the winner. Ernie Irvan calls him out to take it on. That's it 2 in a row.
What a great day for Robert Yates Racing.
Ernie Irvan slammed the second turn concrete wall.
It's amazing that we made it back to victory lane.
I mean, I think I was born to be a race car driver.
When he was a little boy, he was very active.
My dad was a racer, so I thought that basically everybody raced.
My dad had a wrecking yard, and we got to work on the race car a little bit. You know, I was a kid, so I didn't get to do much. But I started racing go-karts when I was 8 years old, which was 1968.
I was scared to death. He was only about 8 years old. I thought it was too soon.
My dad was racing stock cars, so I knew that was the next step.
Went to a NASCAR track in Stockton, California, and started my racing career there. And my dad was out racing at dirt tracks, and so he didn't get to come. But me and my mom would go racing.
Oh, your mom was behind this as well?
Yeah, oh yeah. My mom was kind of my pick crew at the time because my dad couldn't go. And then we went for a NASCAR title in '77 and won it. We won 15 out of 21 races in that year when I was 18 years old.
I thought that was hopefully going to take me to the next level. You know, who knows what was going to happen, you know, because you have to have money to be racing every day.
I kind of grew up with one guy. His name was Timmy Williamson. And
Timmy was a great racer and kind of my idol and somebody I hung out with a lot.
You can see that I'm in turn 6, which is one of the most dangerous turns in all of motorsports. The lack of banking here can be very treacherous for the drivers. Young Tim Williamson lost his life here.
This was a very technical, fast track. That's what made it extremely dangerous.
If you got off the racetrack and there was any moisture, any wetness, you were going to be in trouble.
When Timmy crashed, it had rained. He hit the wall so hard it threw him all the way back on the other side of the track. It was a vicious hit.
It was something that's really hard to live with, and knowing how good Timmy was, it was just something you can't even imagine.
I'd look through the garage area wondering which car he'd be driving right now because I knew he was that good of a racer and he was going to be around for a long time.
The reason we left California is because it was, at best, your hobby racing out there.
And Dad said, he said, man, if you ever want to go any further in racing, you have to be on the East Coast. So I took his suggestion, loaded up everything I had, and started life back here. I'd met up with Mark Reno, an old friend from the West Coast. We were running at Concord, North Carolina. Do anything we could do for somebody to make a little bit of money so we could go racing more.
We were pretty darn good on the dirt. We could win any given day, but when they went asphalt racing, it was like somebody handing us a gift because that's all we had done our whole life. We raced the heck out of our short track car. We used all that money and rolled it into the Butch Grand National car, and then we built a cup car.
You know, I wanted to play hard to get. But when you're sitting there with like a couple cans of pork and beans in the refrigerator, and you're hard to play hard to get.
Let's watch this final lap and see if Ernie Irvan can hold off the challenge of defending Winston Cup champion Rusty Wallace.
Morgan McClure ended up being a team that people could respect.
Ernie Irvan It appears it's going to. Here he is off the fourth corner. Yes, Ernie Irvan wins the Busch 500.
Look at this group.
When I won my first race, Morgan McClure's first race, they're from Bristol. There's just a lot of things happen at that moment.
Is this going to be an upset? We'll see.
And there's trouble off the turn, too.
Dale Earnhardt and Davey Allison both out of this race. Ernie Irvan racing back to the line with a big advantage.
White flag will come out along with the yellow.
There you see the Ernie Irvan crew. Tony Glover. Ernie Irvan will win the 33rd annual 500.
I was a redneck from California. When I won the Daytona 500, I didn't realize it was such a big deal. I really felt like that was going to be a long-term relationship because they were good people, they were good friends. I mean, I thought they were giving me anything I could have to be able to win races.
Mr. Allison, injured in a private helicopter crash yesterday at Talladega Superspeedway. Died this morning at Caraway Methodist Medical Center.
We were lost in the wilderness. I mean, we had lost our driver, Robert and I, really all of us had lost one of our best friends.
I mean, they had so much respect for Davey, so it was a sad moment, the whole garage.
Ford was a big stimulator, and Ford had some conversations with Robert. If we can make this deal happen with Ernie Irvan, are you guys interested? And then Robert eventually came to me. He couldn't even get the whole name Ernie Irvan out of his mouth. It's like, well, hell yeah, are you kidding me? There's no telling what we can accomplish.
Back at Martinsville Speedway in Virginia as we get set to go 500 laps.
It was so hot that day. I mean, it was in the 90s, and I don't think the humidity was too far behind.
White flag waves for Ernie Irvan, who's less than a half a mile away from his first victory with this team. Here is a big win for Ernie Irvan.
Back at Martinsville Speedway, the Goodies 500 is history, and Ernie Irvan is climbing out of this Haviland Ford and trying to get out of this driver's suit because it is extremely hot down here. Ernie, congratulations on an outstanding effort, a dominating day.
Well, I tell you, it's pretty emotional. And everybody had their own idea what they wanted to do for Victory Lane. I've been wearing this shirt since I started driving this car. I knew we could do it. This is for Davey.
Nobody knew he had that T-shirt on, but he wanted to make sure that that race was in memory of Davey Allison. Normally, when we would get to the last race of the year, you're just kind of ready for a little bit of downtime. The way those races went with Ernie, the end of 1993, 1994 couldn't come fast enough.
We had momentum. We were running really fast everywhere we went.
We won Martinsville, and going a week later, Charlotte, we led all but 6 laps.
I felt confident. They felt confident. I mean, that was our championship to lose.
There was no doubt early this is going to go all the way to the bitter end between that 3 and that 28 car.
Ernie Irvan earns his 10th Winston Cup victory, heading for the checkered flag for the second consecutive time in 1994.
Don't often see a car that dominant in NASCAR Winston Cup competition.
Kind of like normal at Michigan on early Saturday morning. All the campers in the infield, campfires. It was like a haze hanging over the track. We'd kind of made an agreement to make a 10-lap run, unless it was just horrible. Well, anyhow, as Ernie came off 4 to complete that 10th lap, I came on the radio. I said, Ernie, I can tell you don't have what you need. Let's get that thing in here and let's go to work. And all of a sudden, I looked and I saw the flagman waving the caution flag. And Raymond Fox, my car chief, he turned around, he went, it's us, it's us.
At 8:40 a.m. this morning, the first Winston Cup practice session, Ernie Irvan slammed the second turn concrete wall.
I was in a state of shock. There's no way. There is no way this is happening.
Lisa Yates, Doug's wife, came and was knocking sort of frantically on the door of the motorhome and told me that Ernie had been in an accident. Larry Robert Me and Mark, we had to drive all the way to the hospital. Pretty much a quiet ride. I mean, we all knew sort of the facts we'd been given at the track. None of us really knew what to expect when we got to the hospital.
I was at home working in my garden. I got the call. Vic called me to say there was a bad accident and he was on his way to the hospital.
I even had thinkings of that night, you know, that he'd be up and around the next day and ready to go racing. It was more serious than I really thought.
Dr. Erlison, he came out and Kim was there at this point. His look was worth 1,000 words. It's almost like if he didn't say a word, you knew.
They just told us that he may have a 10% chance to make it through the night, and every day thereafter we would just start fighting the battle and see where we were at.
In this business, you don't have very many friends, and you know, I don't plan on losing this one, and I just want to ask everybody out there to say a prayer for Ernie.
After struggling all night the first night, trying to hang on Sunday morning his wife Kim strolled into his bedside in intensive care and took the small shoe off their 12-month-old daughter Jordan and placed it in Ernie Irvan's left hand. He crumpled that shoe, and from that moment on, Ernie began to improve.
You could tell he was sometimes responsive. He would squeeze it when you'd say certain things.
I remember waking up in the hospital like 21 days later and not realizing where I'm at, hearing on the TV that Kenny Wallace was driving the 28 car.
Kenny Wallace, who's been named to sub for Ernie Irvan while he's on the men.
Kenny Wallace in the 28 car? What's the heck's going on? I remember that I was a race car driver. You know, there's a lot of things I didn't remember, like knowing how to walk.
He still couldn't really talk. He had to do a lot of the hand signals and stuff like that. And we went through 8 to 9 months, one surgery after another after another.
You know, I remember Kim calling me from the hospital in Michigan and said, I got somebody who wants to talk to you. And it was Ernie. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the best voice I believe I've ever heard in my life.
When he had the basal skull fracture, he was bleeding, like drowning in his own blood. And the doctor, Mano, at the track had to do a tracheotomy. And I guess when he went to open the kit too, there was no handle for the blade, so he had to just do it just with the blade. But it did save his life at that point.
I ended up losing most of my vision out of one eye because the basal skull fracture cut one of the arteries in your eye, and then that made it where my eye didn't move, but I could still see out of it.
The doctor would come in and talk to him about where he was at, how he was progressing, and what to expect. Ernie's like, well, I want to race again. I mean, just right away. I mean, he was like, just start. As soon as he could talk, he started talking, wanting to race again. And the doctor just sort of looked at him and he said, you know, if you'll be lucky if you ever get to drive your little girl to school. He said that would be a successful recovery. So I asked the doctor to meet me out in the hall, and I was like, you and I both don't think he'll be able to race again. I was like, but if that's the carrot I got to dangle in front of him to get him to give his rehab 100%, we're going to use that.
Go around and sit in the middle chair there from here. Well, I find it's kind of a miracle that I'm even here, and I feel really, really grateful that God has saved me. Maybe so I can race again.
That's what you want to do?
Yeah, I want to race. That's all my life has ever been is racing.
I was bound and determined. In my mind, I was going to come racing again.
He had so much grit in him. He worked so hard. People don't understand what he went through.
He went and worked out. He went and did his cognitive, his speech, his physical, everything he could do. His injuries were so severe and everything that happened, I just thought, you know, how do you go from getting back in a race car from you learning to walk and talk again?
Once Ernie knew he was going to recover, and once he knew he eventually was going to come back and drive a race car, it was like a pit bull on a short chain.
First thing's gonna be, what are you doing testing? The doctors have never told me for sure that my eye's ever gonna heal. So, you know, it's been 7 months since my accident. I'm ready to start doing some racing and find out what I can do.
Robert and Larry both looked at me, and I remember being there, and I was like, oh, I can't believe we're doing this again. And he went out, and they both looked at me and said, he's got it. He didn't lose a thing. You know, and I'm like, oh, great. I mean, it's great in one hand, but how do you tell him you can't go race if you can still do it? So, and I felt like if he can do it, then it's meant to be. If he can't, we'll figure out something else.
Just shy of 13 months since his accident, Ernie Irvan got the green flag to race again. The plan would be to run the NASCAR Super Truck races at Martinsville and North Wilkesboro, plus a number 88 Texaco Haviland Ford for Irvan to try Winston Cup racing again, also at North Wilkesboro.
It never crossed me that it's dangerous. I mean, I know it's dangerous, but did I have second thoughts? Never did.
In our industry, it's, all right, we know this is a dangerous sport. It will always be a dangerous sport, but that's part of its attraction to us.
I never felt it was completely back to normal. Not like he wasn't, but I was conscious. I got to see the 30 days him in a coma. I got to see everything. You know, he didn't. He was in a coma. For me, it was very hard to watch him race these last 5 years.
It is official. Ernie Irvan is back in racing. Went out and qualified second in the truck, 7th in the Winston Cup car. It has truly been a heartwarming return.
Probably the most emotional be when they dropped the green flag. I'm just thankful to be able to be here.
Just being able to get out there was so emotional, being able to drive at North Wilkesboro and be able to hear the fans.
Ernie Irvan!
That's what it's all about. You know, I had a ball out there racing and racing with all my buddies and competitors and these fans. I mean, this is nothing more exciting than out here racing like this.
The fans going wild. Ernie Irvan, he's back in victory lane.
Yes, guys, this is great.
This is a long way from that hospital in Michigan back in August '94, and man, how about Ernie? Is he not smooth?
We should have been there before, but where's victory lane?
Getting back to victory lane with Ernie Irvan was important to everybody.
It's amazing that we made it back to victory lane.
We had accomplished what we wanted to accomplish going back into a season with Ernie.
They're in the third and fourth turns again. Gordon closes in. Here they come off the corner to the line. It's Ernie Irvan winning the Miller 400 over Jake Gordon.
Getting back into victory lane, it was very, very rewarding, but I needed to conquer the racetrack that almost conquered me.
This track that nearly cost him his life. It cost him a year in recuperation, battling for the lead. Down to the inside goes Ernie Irvan, and the California driver is back in front. His wife Kim looks on. Final lap. The number 28 stays in first. Ernie Irvan is finally going to win the track that nearly did him in. Ernie Irvan for the checkered flag, and he's won the Michigan 400. How about that performance by Ernie Irvan?
Ernie Irvan climbs out of his Robert Yates Thunderbird. Ernie, this track nearly took your life today. You took something back from it, a big win.
I tell you, it's pretty emotional. Started about 10 laps to go, started getting tears in my eyes.
Kim Irvan, how big a day is this for the Irvan family?
It's pretty big.
As a driver and a competitor, you always want to win, but that day, I think everybody was okay with who won that race.
I was running the Busch car. The car was like really, really fast. Probably the best car I'd ever had. At Michigan, the crew chief, Jerry Baxter, he said, I know we can get the pole. He said, you're 3/10 faster than everybody in practice. Just take it easy. Well, that's not the thing to tell me. I think we had got the pole on the first lap. And so Jerry said, man, he says, you're on the pole right now. I said, man, I can go faster. And so I tried and busted my butt.
It was August 20th, same day, 5 years later at the same track. So I don't think we need a neon sign saying, this is it, stop. I know the accident was nowhere near as severe as the first one, but with head injuries, it's the consecutive part that causes more long-term damage.
I was with my trainer and we were working out. I felt like everything was more of a struggle. And I went, man, there ain't no way I'm gonna do this. I went back and told Kim, I said, I think I'm gonna have to retire.
I appreciate everybody coming out. This is really a special moment in my career, and it's probably one I never thought I'd have to face. But I figure it's smart for me to retire.
I saw how sad he was and how depressed and how it hit him. You know, he was young, and to have to give up the sport, that meant everything to him. But I know he wanted to be there for our kids. For him to be retired, we're the busiest people I've ever seen. That's what he always says. I wonder when retirement starts. He's always got to be busy. He cannot just sit.
He enjoys his family, enjoys racing with his son, Jared. Even though I tell him, you don't need to be working on Jared's car, you just need to be there and enjoy it.
I think he worries a little too much about everything. He wants us to do good and he wants everything to go perfectly. There's nothing left to chance when we go to the racetrack.
He still has racing in his life. He goes to the races with my brother. That's what he loves to do. He has a friend group that goes to the dirt tracks. So I feel like Florida has definitely been a good thing for him.
There's something special about Ernie Irvan. He was one of the most fierce competitors that I've ever known. I feel badly that someone that I cared so much about as a friend didn't get the opportunity to experience the ultimate of winning a championship in the Cup Series, because he deserved that with everything that he'd been through.
I feel really good about my career, knowing what I accomplished. It just so happened that God enabled me to do what I did. He's enabled me to still be here and be with my wife and my daughter and my son, and it's made me who I am.